But the fact that the ratings from Caitlin Clark's series to these series fell off a cliff, it should surprise no one.
I'm watching the Indiana Fever game. I'm just waiting on Caitlin Clark to catch the basketball.
The lack of viewers after Caitlin Clark's playoff exit has driven AJ Wilson insane.
I'm going to go out there and I'm going to try to be the best. I get y'all saying best player in the world. That's great. It looks great. But I want to be the best person. I want to be the best teammate.
In an interview, she stated that this year has seen more people declare my game dull than ever before. I thought, okay, cool, whatever. A.A. Wilson has been furious about the lack of viewers since Caitlin Clark's playoff exit. When the Fever was eliminated, no one was interested in the playoffs anymore, which is exactly what A.A. Wilson wanted: more freedom to play with fans who don't care too much about the sport.
Let's just say the ratings aren't the same with Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever now eliminated. Game 1 of the Aces Liberty matchup on Sunday drew an average of 929,000 viewers. Was down nearly 50% from last Sunday's Fever Sun contest. By the way, not only was viewership down, but attendance was as well.
As she watched everything happen from home, Caitlin Clark's influence caused game after game viewership to decline. I imagined she would be chuckling at this mess. They might have had the most watched playoff final. But no.
All I gotta say is she's lucky this UConn team isn't healthy. And that's a true statement.
That's wrong, Molly.
Monica?
That's wrong, Molly. Molly,
like
it's
five
excuses.
top players,
It's
am I
excuses,
right?
Molly. It's excuses.
Major injuries.
You would not be saying that if it wasn't UConn.
Major stars not playing.
Listen, excuse me,
Go.
it's her against Caitlin Clark.
Stephen A.
Ain't no excuses.
Stephen
You
A.
got there.
Wait a
No, want to hear that now.
Stephen A.
Let me tell you, if
Paige
Georgetown
Becker-
gets back in the mix, I'm going to be insufferable. I'm just telling you that now.
What?
If Paige Beckers didn't basically miss 2 seasons, I don't know if we'd be talking
Come
about
on now.
Caitlin Clark the way we are now.
We now get to see the New York versus Minnesota Lynx final, which is expected to draw the lowest attendance of any playoff game to date. How can the WNBA allow this to happen? I can't even name a single player on either team.
There's a reason 12 million people are watching ESPN for a game. If that game was on CBS, they probably would have had 25, 30 million people watching that game.
The WNBA is lost without Caitlin Clark, and it's evident that they truly tried to reject the Caitlin effect and claimed it didn't exist. However, they are now acknowledging that every second that passes without Caitlin, the WNBA has once again become unwatchable.
It looks like we're not going to be seeing Caitlin Clark play basketball again for another 200 days. An ESPN reporter said at the end of the Indiana Fever Connecticut Sun Game 2 that Caitlin Clark almost definitely will not be playing basketball this offseason. So no overseas and no 3-on-3 unrivaled league.
Throughout the WNBA season, A.A. Wilson and the Las Vegas AC were a dominant force. The team started the playoffs as one of the top contenders, and many people expected the Aces to advance to the finals with A.A. leading them. However, the semifinal matchup against the New York Liberty did not go as expected. The Liberty, led by their own group of star players, put on a strong show and managed to knock out the Aces, sending shockwaves through the WNBA community. The elimination of the Las Vegas Aces not only put an end to the team's hopes of winning the championship, but also took one of the league's biggest stars out of the limelight, which contributed to the general decrease in playoff excitement.
Caitlin Clark's the most valuable, most important person in the WNBA this year, and should have been unanimous Rookie of.
When an MVP is unanimously chosen, there are usually expectations among fans and experts that they would guide their team all the way to the playoffs and possibly even to a championship. When Wilson and the Aces were cut, it not only hurt the team's prospects, but also stole a crucial playoff story. Wilson would no longer even have the opportunity to compete for the championship, despite being the guy that everyone was expected to watch in the finals.
Being disrespectful, but they talked a lot of trash and they got humbled. And I think that that's okay. That is sports. That is what we live for in sports.
Caitlin Clark is a player who draws attention. Her captivating style of play and ability to control a game make her one of the most exciting athletes to watch in the WNBA. However, the playoffs lost a lot of their appeal when the Connecticut Sun eliminated the Indiana Fever, led by Clark. The usual excitement that comes with WNBA playoff games seemed to vanish without Clark. The games felt less intense, less thrilling, and, to be honest, less enjoyable for many fans.
And to act like there isn't or hasn't been legitimate resentment emanating from those who are pioneers Nobody's fooled here. You got pundits who used to play in the WNBA, some of them who didn't, and who were speaking on behalf of those who didn't want to create that kind of noise themselves because of the negative impact. We talk about it when the men do it. If we detect jealousy, if we detect envy, if we detect resentment, and it's amongst the fellas, we put it out there. Shit, we act like it's the latest episode of General Hospital. But when the ladies are feeling that way about another young lady like Caitlin Clark, and people like myself and Shay Shay call it out, suddenly it's a problem.
A player like Caitlin Clark's absence from the playoffs represents the loss of a complete experience rather than just one person. When Clark was eliminated, the enchantment vanished, and the WNBA was left with a postseason that felt flat and uninteresting. This was a serious setback because Clark provides a certain combination of skill and charisma that attracts people, whether they are ardent basketball fans or casual viewers. Without Clark, the playoffs became what many have called a nightmare and a disaster. The playoffs are meant to be the pinnacle of the season, when the finest players shine and spectators are glued to their screens.
Ever since, Angel Reese had that injury, to me, and also coming off of Olympic break, Caitlin Clark separated herself. Yeah. She should have been unanimous. Now, to celebrate her, one thing that people forget is as a rookie, she was the most blitzed player in the WNBA, and she still put up 19, 5, and 8 assists.
The numbers don't lie. Once Caitlin Clark was eliminated from competition, the WNBA saw one of the biggest declines in viewership in its history. Fans who had been following the playoffs with fervor abruptly lost interest, and the decline wasn't gradual. Rather, it was abrupt and immediate, demonstrating how important Clark is to the league. The WNBA, like any professional sports league, depends heavily on viewership for its success. Securing sponsorships, advertising partnerships, and even broadcasting rights depends on television ratings. If viewership declines, the league's chances to increase and broaden its audience also decline. For many fans, Clark is crucial to the league's overall success, as evidenced by the sharp drop in viewership that followed her dismissal. The WNBA had been enjoying a steady increase in popularity, with more fans tuning in to watch the games. But without Caitlin Clark, the league saw a massive drop in those numbers, a decline that could have long-term consequences if the league doesn't find a way to keep fans engaged without relying solely on its biggest stars. While many factors can contribute to a decline in viewership, it's evident that Caitlin Clark's absence was the primary reason for the dramatic drop in numbers. It's crucial to realize how much of an impact Clark has on viewership. When she's on the court, fans are drawn in by her incredible skills, leadership, and undeniable presence. She has a way of making every game feel important, and viewers respond to that. Whether it's her ability to score goals or her clutch performances in crucial moments, Clark brings something to the game that few other players can match. Clark is more than just a player. She's a phenomenon. Without her, the WNBA playoffs would have lost a significant portion of their audience.
Pretty impressive for Caitlin to win Rookie of the Year in a dominant fashion when it is going to be one of the great rookie classes in the history of the league.
Fans who had been watching Clark's journey vanished when she was removed from the draw. Even if other players were brilliant, they lacked the star power to keep viewers interested during the playoffs, so they abruptly had no reason to stay watching. Caitlin Clark is one of the biggest stars in the WNBA, a league that feeds on its stars. Without her, the playoffs would have lost a significant percentage of their viewership.
Hats off to the Fever on a great season. I don't think anybody expected them to make the playoffs after starting 1-8. They had a tremendous second half of the season. That Olympic break was much needed. But Caitlin Clark, she just completely changed around the WNBA culture, and she completely changed around the Indiana Fever's culture for the future. And the future is bright for the Indiana Fever. And I'm so happy that, Caitlin Clark came into the WNBA light, and fans get to actually watch her and see what.
In addition to being one of the WNBA's top players, Caitlin Clark serves as the league's spokesperson. Her ability to attract viewers is unparalleled, and she has emerged as a key role in the WNBA's attempts to increase its viewership. Caitlin Clark is frequently the first player that comes to mind, and for good reason. Her play style is what draws fans in. She plays with a flair and intensity that are uncommon in professional sports, whether it's her daring drives to the basket, her deep three-pointers, or her dazzling assists. Every game feels like a must-see event moment when Clark is on the court because she knows how to keep spectators interested and captivated. The WNBA saw one of the biggest drops in viewership in its history when the Indiana Fever, led by Caitlin Clark, were eliminated from the playoffs by the Connecticut Sun. This game marked the turning point, the point at which everything changed. Up until that point, the playoffs had been attracting a sizable audience, but after Clark's team was eliminated, the numbers started to drop off quickly for fans. The loss of the Indiana Fever wasn't just about one team being eliminated. It was about losing the opportunity to watch Caitlin Clark continue her playoff journey. Fans lost their main motivation to watch after the Fever subsided because Clark had been the main attraction of the playoffs and her performances were the season's high point.
Basketball has really consumed my life for a year, so I feel like it'll be good for me to kind of reflect back on everything that's happened. Like, I feel like I didn't even have time to really reflect on my college career because it ended so fast. I feel like taking some time to myself and really enjoying that and reflecting back.
The decline in viewership following this game was remarkable. The WNBA was seeing some of its highest ratings during the playoffs, but when Clark was absent, the numbers fell precipitously. Fans just weren't as interested in watching the remaining games, and this decline in viewership was a glaring example of how much the league depends on its top players to keep fans interested. The WNBA had been gaining traction throughout the season as more fans tuned in to watch the games, but after Caitlin Clark was fired, that momentum came to a complete stop, and the league was left frantically trying to figure out how to keep fans interested without its biggest star. The viewership numbers showed how difficult that task was. The league's viewership suffered greatly after losing both Caitlin Clark and Al Wilson. This is an unprecedented drop that highlights how crucial these players are to the league's success.
This went from being one of the most loved teams in the WNBA to being riddled with so much drama this season. A'ja Wilson was under fire last week for the privileged comment that she made to Kelsey Plum. And Coach Becky Hammon was under fire for basically saying that her team was too busy being celebrities and they were distracted and that's why they're not winning games. The list goes on and on. If you're this Aces team, you really need to regroup and maybe make some tough decisions about the future of this team.
The WNBA Finals are expected to be the most anticipated games of the year, with fans eager to watch the top teams battle for the title and the league anticipating its highest attendance during this time. However, with players like Caitlin Clark out of the competition, this year's final is likely to be one of the least watched games in WNBA history. The WNBA was expecting for a huge showdown, but now it has to face the fact that the final will probably draw relatively few viewers. These players' absence has made what should have been an exciting season finale a low-key affair for the WNBA, which is a serious problem. Without Caitlin, the excitement simply isn't there. Fans are less interested, and the final is predicted to have the lowest viewership the league has seen in years. The final is supposed to be the pinnacle of the season and the game that attracts the most attention.